Okay, so this is our first lab in the ERT303 PLC Part 1 course. This is going to be a pretty simple lab. Today we're just going to be working with the factory I/O software. So we're going to do a pretty simple exercise for this. We're basically going to build a single conveyor machine using the software. We'll just walk through all the steps of developing that, just to get you a little bit familiar with the 2010 lab and the factory I/O software, which is one of the two softwares that we'll be using. We're using factory I/O as the tool that we use to build machines that we can simulate, and then the second piece of software, which we'll use for the first time next week, will be the Studio 5000, which is the PLC programming software, which is actually what this course is about. So today we're just going to try out the factory I/O software. So the first step we're going to have to do, if you can open up your software, which should be on your computer once you log in, we actually have to manually activate the license for this. So this, if we go under the this little home thing here, you'll see two things that should be blinking at you. The second one here says activate license. So if you click on that, you'll get this screen here, and we actually need to put in a share code. Now the share code, which should show up in your lab document as well, is 6 capital O, that is an O, not a 0, capital Y dash C, capital C, 7 capital X dash 29 capital R. So if you put that in and then hit activate, it should say checking out a floating license, and that should now activate your software. Unfortunately, at this point, we have to do that every time we log in. Then once you have this, you'll go back here, you'll see that activate license option is no longer there. And the one thing you can do to see that your software is actually activated for sure, when you're in this screen here, if you go to File, you should now have Save and Save As options here. Those would be grayed out if your software is not activated. So if we move around the environment here, if you hold down your right mouse button, you will see that you can pan around, and you'll get pretty familiar with this pretty quickly. So I'm holding down my right mouse button to be able to do that. You can also use the wheel to zoom in and out. You can also use the arrow keys to go left and right, forward and backward. So this basically looks like a big empty factory. And there's different camera modes as well. We are in what's called the orbit camera right now. There is the fly camera. You can kind of see how that operates differently as well. We can move up and down with that. And then there's the first person camera, and this operates almost more like a video game, where you can actually maneuver around almost like in a video game mode. So figure out which kind of camera mode you like. I like the orbit camera. That's the one that seems the most natural to me. You'll also notice if you center your mouse somewhere, that is now your focal point. So if I center on this door over here, everything I do is rotating around that door. I'm zooming in, I'm zooming out relative to that door. If I look at this, whatever this thing is on the wall over here, I can then zoom in. Oh, it's a fire hose. Okay. Got to have safety in our factory. So this is our environment, and the fun thing is we can build things within this environment. So we want to be able to build machines and put them in here. So our machine today is going to be 3 pieces of conveyor and a pusher. So this, what's called the pallet window over here. This is where all of our stuff lives. And you'll see there's lots of different items there. And what we can do is drag and drop things from here into our space. So this machine we're going to build today to make it look like that picture is going to have 3 different sections of conveyor. So I think I'm just going to go with a 2-meter section. The little round section. And then let's do a 4-meter section. Let's do that. So these are all different lengths and different things. I also have, let's start with these. So these are my conveyor sections. I'm just going to center on this one. Now if you are, we want to arrange these like they are in the picture. I can move these around once they're in to link them up together. And basically putting them together is just literally placing them so that they line up. Now this one over here, you can see this is in the wrong orientation right now. The way that I turn something is if I do a right click on it, you see this gives me a whole bunch of options here. So these ones allow you to do a yaw. A yaw is rotating about the y-axis. So if I click that, it spins it around. So I want to do a rotation in that direction. You get it to go like this, and we will find out in a minute if I actually did that in the correct rotation or not. We'll see if that's actually spinning the correct way. So that is what my picture looked like. Let's go with that. So now the other items that I want to add in, I'm going to add in this pusher machine. And what this does, pusher, this is actually a machine that pushes parts. You can see it has a this plate on the front of it is on these 2 pneumatic cylinder rods. So this pushes out. You can see that it's pneumatically controlled because there's like a little pneumatic control bank on the side here. That is our filter regulator package on the side here. That looks pretty cool. So we're going to put that on the side here to kick parts off. So I'm going to right click on this again. Now you'll see this one has more options. We can actually control the spin it all around like that if we wished. We can put it on the side, but I just want to turn it like this. So this is going to push parts off the conveyor. Now if we want to arrange this in a vertical direction, what I do is I hold down the V key. When I do this, if I'm holding down V while I try to move it, I am then moving things up and down. So you can see I'm moving it in the vertical plane. I do that. I want to put this up against the conveyor. I'm going to put it about midway there. And then I'm going to get this down along the same plane. So it's just kind of sitting at the correct plane. So that that plate is just above the conveyor, not hitting it, just above. So we could say that that is bolted into the side of the conveyor, or we can try to say, you know what, this is going to be supported somehow. We can make machines that just look like they are kind of floating in space, or we can make them look like they actually are obeying the laws of physics. Now the way you might want to do that with this is we can actually bring in some posts and say this is going to be mounted on some posts. So this here is called a column. I'm going to bring that in. Basically attach this to the side. You'll see if I put this through another object, it doesn't like that. So I'm just going to kind of stick this on the side here. and make it look like it's actually attached to something. Turn the slots that way. Actually, it'll look better the other way. Just for when we're actually making a machine, make it look like it's actually, things aren't just hanging in midair. I'm just going to now do a quick copy and paste. So Control C and Control V to produce another one of these columns. Another one there. And I'm going to highlight both of these. So just Control and Control. Control C, Control V to produce another two of those. We'll do that. There we go. Make it look like it's actually being held up by something. Okay. Now I'm looking at the arrows on this conveyor, seeing these arrows right here, and I'm thinking this conveyor is probably going in the wrong direction. So I'm going to look at the, I'm just going to spin this around. Now that's going that way. You can see this one here looks like it's going in the wrong direction as well. I think that is now correct. There's the gap there. And this one shows up in red, that means it's overlapping another piece. We'll do that. Okay. So I'm basically building this up. So let's now look at, let's test some of this out. I'm just going to bring in a part. Here's all my parts. I'm just going to bring in a box. I'll bring this over here. I'm going to do a V to raise it up. I'm just going to drop that here on the conveyor. So let's now start this out. So that is just, see, that's just hanging in space right now. That's going to fall when I start, but that's okay. So I have these elements so far. Let's give this a try. So I've now built this. Now I'm going to do something over here. I'm going to go under something called View. If I click on View, I get a bunch of options here. You see a bunch of different things. I'm going to do something that says Dock All Tags. Now when I click this, what this is going to do, it's going to bring up a bunch of tags over here on the screen. And what these are, this is basically, there is one of these that's associated with every input and output that's associated with a device that I put into my machine. So for example, belt conveyor 2 meter, that would be this one here. Belt conveyor 4 meter, that would be this one here. So these are basically the motors for those conveyors. Belt conveyor clockwise, curved belt conveyor, so that's this guy. And then we have the pusher number 1. That is actually the output that makes this pusher move. We have the pusher 1 back limit. That is a switch that indicates that this is in its back or returned position. And pusher 1 front limit, that is a switch that indicates that this is in its extended position. So let's see what happens if we put this actually into running mode. So my options up here, I have this one here, so I can hit this button, and this will actually turn my simulation. It'll take it out of building mode, which I'm in right now, where I can build. If I click that, I am now in running mode. So you'll see how that box dropped, and I am actually now in running mode. So this is running like an actual live machine right now. So you'll see now if I hover over top of this box, I can actually grab this and pick it up, and that is actually running with real physics on it. So it's acting with forces like gravity and things like that. So I now have that on the conveyor. That's sitting on there. So let's actually turn on some things and watch them work. And this is basically what we do with these machines. Now today, we are just going to turn things on in a manual simulation mode by clicking things in this tag window here. In this course, what we will be doing is we'll be making machines and then having our PLC, which is in the lab, a physical PLC in the lab. We will be having the code in that PLC communicating with this simulation and having the PLC code running this machine via an Ethernet connection. So that is what this course is about. It's about having little machines that we are then going to program with PLC code, and we are learning how to create that PLC code. So let's just test out this machine right now to see if we've built it correctly. So what I'm going to do is click right here. This is actually going to force on this first belt conveyor. So I click that on, I can click it off, I can see that actually turns, and the box moves forward. So see if I zoom in there, you can actually see, you can see that belt moving. If you have sound enabled, you can actually hear it as well. I'm going to change my sound settings here so we can actually hear these. Let's see if I turn this off. So that is that first conveyor. Let's check the curved conveyor. See how that moves it over there? It's shaking like that because that second conveyor is not running. So that one is running, but the next conveyor is not running. That's what our problem is there. And then what we want to do is have that third conveyor run as well. Let's turn that one on. There we go. And it falls off the end. So if I actually turn all of these conveyors on, and I were to grab that box, it's kind of tricky grabbing things in 3D like this, and then let it go, you'll see that will actually go now right around because all of my conveyors are running together. It'll go right around and fall off the end. Alright, so those are the conveyors. Let's look at this pusher. So what we get from the pusher, we have one output. So if we click this output, this should make the pusher extend. So it does that. You can hear the rush of air because it's in pneumatic motion. So turning on that output makes it extend. Turning it off makes it retract. And you can see as well, we get feedback inputs that tell us what the status of the pusher is. So right now, this one is on. That is at its back limit. And you'll see when it travels, this one goes off. And then the front limit will come on when it gets all the way extended. So that goes from off. They're both off when it's in mid position. So that is the pusher. Okay. Some other things that we can see here. Actually, let's stop there for now. Let's go back into building mode and we'll add some more things to this. Let's look at emitters. That's an emitter. This is a remover. An emitter is something that just continuously creates parts. So let's do that so we don't have to feed boxes onto this. Let's have boxes just continuously appear for us. So this would be like it's being fed from an outside source. So this is an emitter. I'm going to delete that box. Let's just put an emitter right over top of this conveyor. And I'm going to right click on this emitter, and I have a lot of options here. You can set the max and min times that parts are going to come out. So let's say we're going to get a part every 5 seconds. Between every 3 to 5 seconds we'll get a part. That's going to be random. Let's randomize the orientation and the position. So that means they can appear anywhere within this space and in any orientation as well. And let's pick what parts we're actually going to see. We won't get pallets or square pallets, but let's get the small, medium, and large boxes. We're a palletizing box. Small, medium, and large boxes. So that is these 3 types of boxes here. Box small, box medium, box large. Yeah, let's do those 3 boxes. So that is an emitter. So those are just going to appear. As long as there's space within here, we'll get a new box appearing. I still have these conveyors forced on, so let's just watch this. So you'll see now, every 3 to 5 seconds, we'll get a new box forming. They come out in random order, random orientation, and random box type as well. Now let's look at some other things here. This little stopwatch, we can control how fast things go. So 1 is just regular speed. We can slow that down to half speed, super slow speed if we really want to watch things going in slow motion. We can go up to 4 times regular speed. If you just want to burn through your simulation and watch it, things happen faster. Let's leave that at 1. Alright, let's add some more things. Let's add a remover. A remover makes objects disappear. So I'm going to drop this down. So instead of getting this big pile of boxes over here, let's actually make them disappear. So basically, if a box falls into this remover, it's going to disappear. And you can see them just kind of dissolve in there. Okay. Now let's add a couple more little features in here. So why did we put that pusher in there? Let's actually add in this chute conveyor. That's this. So this is just a slide that we'll put on the side of this conveyor. Drop that down here, the right height. We'll line this up with the pusher, and what we'll try to do is we'll try to push boxes onto that chute. So this would be like a sorting operation. So we could say only the big square ones we'll try to push. So we're going to operate our pusher with this. So when they come on, they're in the right spot. We'll try to push them down there. So this would be a basic sorting type of application. So those types of boxes we let go. These ones here. We let pass. So we let that one pass. Let that one pass. This one here, we want to push. You have to be careful. Is very true to life. You can't have things like this happening. If you get a bunch of things jammed up in here, you can actually jam this. Like now I'm stuck. There's boxes jammed up, I can't move now. So this is very true to life. You have to make sure things like that can't happen. At this point you would need your operator to come in and say, somebody would have to come in and start grabbing boxes and throwing them out of here to avoid a jam up. So the physics in this are quite fantastic. It does act very true to life. It is a very good tool to use. So let's add a couple more things in here. Let's add another remover down here. Take away these boxes that we push. And let's add in something that will actually try to sort the boxes. Now we're just still going to control this manually, but if we were going to do this with a PLC controlling it, we would need something that tells us whether a box is tall or short. So the way that we would do that, the simple way to do it would be to put some type of sensor there. So let's put in a retroreflective sensor like this, and that one works with a reflector as well. So that's basically a beam that bounces off of a reflector. So for something like this, we would need to put this over here and shoot that beam off of a reflector. So let's rotate this around. Let's translate it vertically. So we would want to set this up so only the tall boxes broke that beam. So then if we detected a tall box, we would push it. Probably put that closer to the pusher. Now you can see, again, we want to mount things so that they're kind of realistic. So we have a little mounting plate on there. So let's actually mount that sideways like this. And this beam has to get broken by, first of all, we need a reflector over here to bounce that beam off of. And then let's put something in that this can mount to. So let's look at this bracket frame here. Let's bring this in. Rotate that. And this looks like it just kind of mounts, so I lost space over here. This looks like it kind of mounts on the side of the conveyor. Let's do this. And we'll stick this. I'll just mount to the side of this. Put the reflector. Same thing, reflector over here. That actually looks like it's physically possible, like that. And you'll see I added in a new part, but the tag for it doesn't show up in here. What I actually have to do here is say clear all dock tags, and then open that up again. Dock all tags, and now all my new devices show up in here. So now what we'll see when we run, we'll see if we have this at a good height. So a box that size should go underneath it, and a box on that edge is going to break that beam. So you can see this retroreflective sensor. Let's see how that is on right now. It's giving signal. It goes off when a box goes through it. So that would be our signal to push right there. Okay, so that is adding in a sensor. Now if you didn't want to see those beams all the time, you can say don't show the sensor range. That sensor's still working, it's just not showing you that red line. I think it's always nice to show those. But that is running right now. Let's push this one. Okay. Looking pretty good. Let's do one more thing. Let's add in a control panel with some buttons on it. Oh, we'll also add in, let's put in a warning light. I drop that right on top of this frame over here. That's sitting in space up above it. Put that in up there. What that does, that just gives us a clear and dock them again because I added a new device. So that's just a light. We can display like that. Let's put in a control panel. So there's this guy here, electrical switchboard they call it. Just going to put mine over here. I'm going to put that on a column so it doesn't look like it's floating in space. There, it looks like it's actually mounted to that. And let's put some buttons on this. So I'm going to put in a start button, and a stop button. And I'll also put in one of these. An e-stop here. Let's put in an e-stop as well. I'm going to take all three of these, move them up. I'll dock all those tags. You can see these show up in here now too. We'll simulate this. So now what we can see here, now I actually have input devices that I can physically control. So you can see this start button tag right here. If I push this button, I physically come over and click on it, you'll see how that input comes on. So if I had this linked to a PLC, which we will do next week, then pushing that button will turn on a PLC input. Okay. Same thing with the stop button. The stop button is a normally closed contact, so it already has signal right now. It's giving a 1 right now. If I was to push that, that changes to a 0. Now these buttons are illuminated buttons, so they actually have lights associated with them as well. So I can turn on that light, or I can turn on this light. And then the E-stop, emergency stop button, you'll see that that is actually lit up right now because it is giving a signal of a 1. And if I push that, that is now a 0. You can actually see that physical button moving like that, like a relay stop does. Okay, so that is creating a little machine that we can control either manually like this, or we can control, as we will do next week, with our PLC. Okay. A couple other little things that I'll show you. If I didn't like these names on here on the buttons, I can change that. I can go over here and double click and call this Start Conveyor, and you'll actually see Start Conveyor will now come up on the tag on here. I want to call this E-stop. I could change this to E-stop. So you can rename these devices. You can rename all the devices like that. If you want to see what is what out in the field here, you can show sensor tags and actuator tags, and that actually shows you what is what. So you can actually see this here. This is curved belt conveyor, 1 clockwise. You can actually see whether that's on or off. So if I'm changing the tag over here, you can actually see it go dim or bright. You can tell which one you're clicked on, or you can click on specific things as well. So that's what all these things mean. You can save camera positions. There's other things. So for the rest of this lab today, if you like, you can play around with this, try adding in some more objects, devices, see what some of these different things do. Some of them are pretty small and tiny, some of them are really big. This is a complete robot loaded CNC station. There's lots of different things you can experiment with here. But this is Factory I/O software. This is the software that we will be using as a tool to help us learn PLC programming in this course. Okay? So, good luck.